Welcome to the True Crime Cafe. I'm Becky.
And I'm Angie, and you won't believe the case I have for you today.
So what do you have for me this week, Angie?
I have the reality of murder.
Okay.
So in 2008, the Stockdale family was living in the Beach City, Ohio area. They had moved to that area in part to raise their family away from, quote, violent language, sexual influences, drinking, smoking, drugs, and rap music.
Okay,
so they created a homestead, and Dad Tim, who was 48 at the time, ran the farm, and he had a full-time job delivering animal nutrients. I'm not real sure what that is. I did not dive further into that.
Yeah, having grown up spending summers on a farm, animal nutrients, that makes me think like maybe some kind of like vitamins for livestock.
I don't know. It wasn't necessarily relevant to the story per se, but it was included in the information that I found. So
yeah, I get that.
Mom Kathy, who was 44 at the time, stayed home cooking and cleaning. She also homeschooled their sons, Calvin, 19, Charles, 16, Jacob, 15, and James, who was 11. So
boys.
Yeah. And it was like very traditional roles.
Okay.
In the house. So like Dad made the money. Mom stayed home. Mom made sure all the cooking and cleaning was done. Made sure the kids were taken care of. So it's very, very old school traditional roles.
Yeah. Very unlike my house.
So yeah. Unlike mine as well. The Stockdales also had a family bluegrass band, which Kathy managed.
Okay.
The family had strict rules. And when I say this, I know that strict rules is relative to individual thinking. So like what I consider strict, somebody else might not.
Yeah.
But I'm calling these strict rules. The research that I did calls them strict rules. You can let me know if you have a differing opinion. The boys were not allowed to date or curse. There was no pop or rap music allowed, and processed and fast food were banned. They spent their days doing schoolwork, practicing for performances, and doing chores, including helping Tim run the farm. They earned tokens for completed chores, which they could then use to earn time to listen to the radio or get sticks of gum. So that's why I'm classifying these as strict.
I homeschooled my boys from middle school on.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest thing I got to that was going down to the Dollar Tree and getting them the play checkbook so that they could keep track of their allowance and how they spent it. But it was like a teaching tool for math. It wasn't like, let me control your life, which sounds like this. Like I know children don't make the best decisions. My kids are young adults right now, and they still don't always make the best. I just joined the Half Century Club, and I don't always make the best decisions. But these like 11 and up, and at some point you got to let them make their own choices that don't involve tokens that they earn, whether, the choice is, do I want radio time, listen to music my parents say I can listen to, or a stick of gum that my parents approved. That's just, it's to me, my opinion is that that's very controlling, and my prediction is that one of these kids is going to snap. So but we'll wait and see.
The family appeared on the reality TV show Wife Swap in 2008. Did you ever watch Wife Swap?
Yes, I know this sounded familiar. I love Wife Swap. I was so addicted.
Okay, so it was basically one of the original reality shows. So for those who do not know what Wife Swap was, the premise of the show was for two wives to swap families for 2 weeks. The first week, the women had to follow the family rules. And then the second week, they got to change up the rules. Okay. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, they returned to their respective homes and families. And sometimes new rules that had been implemented were kept. Sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they were really like super far out there.
This has nothing to do with this case, but do you remember the balloon boy?
Mm-hmm.
Said was in the balloon and whatever.
Yeah, they found
That
him hiding in the
family-
attic.
Yeah, they were on wipe swap.
Were they?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and the only reason I remember this episode, and I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember watching it, and I remember telling my husband, we can never go on that show because I do not want to be in a family where for a week I have to live by their rules and like cook and clean and crap like by myself.
Mm-hmm. The wife Kathy swapped with was her polar opposite, okay? Where Kathy was strict and religious, the other wife had much less structure and fewer rules.
Mm-hmm.
So during the second week where they were allowed to implement new rules, she allowed the older brothers to go on a double date for the first time.
Yeah.
The Stockdale family rules were also relaxed, so they were less strict. They were allowed to watch some TV. They were allowed to listen to music. They didn't have to earn tokens, that type stuff. However, Jacob did not do well with that at all.
Okay.
According to one article I read, when the rules were relaxed, he ran out of the house screaming. And when the woman went and found him, he was talking about how he was going to go to hell because he was, watching TV or whatever.
This sounds very, very, I went to a Pentecostal church with a friend one time, and we had similar rules. Women could not wear pants. My mom put me in like this really pretty little, late 70s, early 80s pantsuit, to go to Bible school with my friend. And they took me aside and told me that it was a sin for women to wear pants, and I should never come back wearing pants again. And I remember going home and be like, what the hell, because I wear pants? But yeah, this sounds like one of those religions that are more like Old Testament.
Once the swap was over, they went back to their regular homes and whatnot. The strict rules were put back in place at the Stockdale residence.
Well, yeah.
The family continued on with their lives out of the media spotlight. On June 15th, 2017, the Stockdale family would be thrust back into the spotlight in the most horrible way. At 4:36 p.m., the Stark County 911 Center received an emergency call, but the caller hung up. Now, their protocol was for, even with a hang-up call, if it got the address of where it was calling from, their policy was to still send officers out there. You never know. It could have been an accident. Somebody dialed it, but it could be like somebody dialed it and they're in the middle of an emergency and whatnot. So their policy was to still send deputies out to check, make sure everything was
and it's a good policy.
good. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it's not. The call came from the Stockdale residence.
Okay.
When the deputies arrived, the front door was open. They saw a figure inside and then heard a single gunshot. Inside, Kathy and James, who was the youngest, lay dead, and Jacob was suffering from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, barely alive.
Oh, no.
Kathy was described by her family as a wonderful mother who loved being a grandmother with a strong love of learning. And James was a gifted musician and a catalyst of family fun. Jacob spent over a year in the hospital and rehabilitation facility recovering from his injury. In September of 2018, Jacob was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. Yeah, he pleaded not guilty, and in January of 2019, his attorney requested a psychiatric evaluation.
Okay.
In May of 2019, Jacob was deemed not mentally competent to stand trial and was admitted to a psychiatric facility. While there, he tried to escape twice.
What?
In 2020, Jacob was found to be competent by a judge to stand trial. And in April of 2021, Jacob pled guilty to killing James and Kathy, despite him asking the judge to give his son the lightest sentence possible. Jacob was sentenced to 2 15-year sentences to run consecutively.
Okay.
So, a lot of times when sentencing somebody, who's been convicted of multiple crimes. Sometimes the judges will have the sentences run concurrently, meaning both sentences are being served at the same time. Because Jacob was sentenced to run consecutively, he essentially was given a 30-year prison sentence.
Yeah.
Okay. He will not be eligible for parole until 2048.
Wow.
You're looking at, let's see, 2021. He's got to serve 27 years, right? Did I math right? No, I did. Yeah, I mathed right.
Yeah.
27 years he's got to serve before he's even eligible for parole. And then, I mean, if they don't grant him parole, at that point, he's only got 2 years or 3 years left to serve.
Yeah.
So Tim and the remaining sons, Calvin and Charles, say that they have forgiven Jacob.
Okay.
Which I can't imagine how hard that would be to have to forgive somebody for killing your wife and mother, even if it is your brother. I would still think that it would be difficult. However, that's where more power to them for forgiving them.
Yeah. And no matter how religious your family is, forgiveness is hard.
It is. Forgiveness can be hard for the little things.
Yeah.
So
I can't imagine. Well, I can. We had a family member who was murdered by a family acquaintance, and I'm not on the level of forgiveness. Some days I think I have, and then other days I turn around and I'm like, no, not ready.
Yeah. Sadly, there over the years have been many people who have had negative effects in their life after appearing on reality TV and talk shows and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I can remember one episode of Jenny Jones back in the day where a gentleman ended up getting shot and killed by another man that he had taken on the show to reveal that he had a crush on.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the end of it for Jenny Jones' talk show.
Yeah, I remember Jenny Jones because she was running about the same time as Ricky Lake and Sally Jesse Rapid. Remember Sally Jesse with big red glasses?
Yep. So sadly, no motive was ever given for Jacob committing these crimes. So I don't know if it had to do with the strict rules being in place. I don't know if he maybe had some mental health issues going on that had been undiagnosed. They don't know.
Yeah. If he had some mental health issues going on and they were controlled by his controlling parents, not letting him have a lot of free will, and then suddenly you go from that to, in a snap, here's all the free will you want. That could have been a trigger.
Yeah.
You never know.
I mean, the gun is one that the family had in the house. Based on what I read, I interpreted it to mean he was still living there at their house. So yeah, unfortunately, no motive was ever given. And chances are that with the trauma caused by Jacob shooting himself in the head, there's a very good chance that he does not even remember why he did this. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it was a direct result of them appearing on the reality show just because, I mean, it was a decade difference, basically. But again, unfortunately,
like said, reality TV has no shortage of tragedy.
Oh, yeah.
And, they have lists about it. Like there was some woman from The Bachelor who died following a suicide attempt, and then the show Buck Wild, what was his name, Shane, do you remember him? Did you ever watch that show on MTV?
I did not watch Buck Wild.
I feel like MTV is where I get most of my reality TV because I started with The Real World the early 90s, which was the very first reality TV show. And so I remember Buck Wild. I didn't watch it, but I remember it because it happened in West Virginia where I used to live. And the main character looks like a friend of my kids. So, because I would, joke with them like, hey, Buck Wild. And, but
sad story.
I mean, very sad story. I feel horrible for the family because it's one thing to lose a child. It's one thing to lose a parent or a spouse. But, they have multiple levels of grief going on here.
Yeah, I was going to say, but to lose both of them at the same
Mhm.
time at the hands of another son or brother. Like you said, there's multiple layers of grief there.
Yeah. I'm wondering what religion they were.
I don't know. I don't think it ever said in any of the articles I looked at.
I'm just seeing super religious in the previous.
Yeah, I don't remember anything that I read saying what religion they.
Yeah. I do remember when this episode, though, wasn't the other mom like a gamer or something, or like a pagan or something like that? That might
No,
have been a different
she
episode.
was just like, they didn't really
Normal.
have any rules for their kids.
Yeah.
They were members of Presbyterian. They were members of the Zion Reform Church, which is part of the Presbyterian Church in America.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, Presbyterians they're pretty strict too, but Pentecostal, that was like the strictest church I ever went. I went to a wide range of churches, and I had a youth group leader who would intentionally take us to different churches of different religions about once a month to just like compare and contrast different religions on like an educational level.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was pretty neat. So,
Yeah,
wow, very, very sad story.
it is very sad. I mean, I'm on the. I don't want to say I'm on the fence, but like, part of me is glad that he survived his
Mhm.
attempt to shoot himself in the head. But
Mhm.
part of me is wondering, like, whatever damage that caused, would he be better off if he had not? I guess whatever damage it caused, it was not too bad per se, since he was eventually found competent to stand trial and
Yeah.
pled guilty. So
Mhm. I also wonder if they had not gone on the show Wipe Swap, would that have even made a difference? Because eventually it's going to get out in the world anyway. How does a family that doesn't do pop music, rap music, no dating, no this, no that, how do they even know about a reality show called Wipe Swap? Because you have to apply to be on the show.
yeah, I don't know. I know that I don't feel comfortable saying that them appearing on the reality show played a part in the murders, only because of the time span between when they appeared and when the murders occurred.
Right.
But I mean, you don't know.
It's easy to what if after the fact.
Exactly.
And with us having limited knowledge, it's easy for us to say, and what if?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, we're not going to go so far as to imagine, you know, an alternate reality. You know, if we were writing a book, how would we do it? We're not going to sit here and do that.
But I think it's that would be disrespectful to the victims.
Yes, with our limited information, like I said, it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
very easy to what if, and that's anything. That's something you read in the newspaper, something you know. We have a small town paper here, and it's always giving little one-sided editorials. And you know, my husband and I look at each other and we're like, well, what's the other side of the story? And so
I mean, you have to take everything you read or hear, like on the news or whatever, with a grain of salt, so to speak. The way the report is given is always going to be tempered by a person's personal bias.
Yes.
No matter how much they try to keep their personal bias out of it, it is definitely there. So
I just finished a true crime book, and it's not a case that I would ever cover here because it involves a child. But the father was an Amish man, and he was abusing his son, and he was a serial killer, drug user. And I'm telling my husband something, he's a real sicko. And he goes, what part of that makes him a sicko? I'm like, that he was abusing his child. He goes, okay, just want to make sure. And I'm like, really? You had to ask? So,
yeah.
But
I mean, it's all, like I said, it's all tempered by a person's beliefs, thoughts, personal bias.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very sad case.
It was.
Stay caffeinated.
And join us next time for another cup of crime.